Cheers, my loves. I hope that all of you are doing really well. And today I want us to talk a little bit more about detachment, especially in relationships, and finding somebody who is emotionally available, and how to stop finding people who aren't emotionally available, especially people after a certain age, because we usually, when we meet someone, we're not the first person to come into their lives. They have had their feelings for other people, their emotional, energetic connections to other people, their adventures. And it's very important to keep in mind that the fresh slate from which we start writing our story with them is not the fresh slate from which they're living this story and what we can do about it. Now, one of the reasons why sometimes we really get emotionally invested in people and we have a lot of trouble detaching from them is that we've converted that person into a source of pleasure for us. Not even based on the things that happened in real life, not based on physical intimacy we had with them, things they said to ourselves, the kind of story that we're developing together, but based on our fantasizing. Every time when we find ourselves in a very charged, very emotional situation, in order to be able to calm our nervous system and to give ourselves that hit of pleasure and that hit of stabilization, our mind runs to that person. Our mind has converted that person into that grounding center, into that source of pleasure, that little thing that gives us the support, the imaginary emotional support, the will to live that we're looking for in that moment. And when we're telling ourselves right now is the time we want to detach from this person, our whole body goes into rebellion, starts to protest and says, I can't live without that hit of dopamine. I can't live without that kind of emotional support. Why would you put me through that? I know that we can avoid it. I know that there is absolutely no harm in us continuing to fantasize about this person and about what maybe one day our relationship could be, or what could have been if they're the one that got away. And we don't realize that it's like a slot machine. We put a coin into it and we wait and we don't win, and then we put another coin into it and we wait and we don't win, and then we simply cannot walk away because we say, I have invested so much into the slot machine that if right now I get up and I walk away, somebody else is going to sit down in my space and they're going to win big time, and it's going to be all of the money that was meant for me, and it shouldn't go to them. So I'm just going to keep sitting here and I'm just going to keep playing this game because this money is supposed to be mine. And we don't realize that this is something where, in order for it to be able to start diminishing, to be able to start wilting, we need to stop feeding it our energy, our attention, our hopes, and our emotions. And sometimes, in order to be able to stop feeding it our energy, attention, hopes, and emotions, we need to find alternative sources of pleasure. We need to make our lives that proportion that to us, lives that we look forward to living, lives that give us that hit of dopamine and that hit of enjoyment and bliss and grounding and being present in the moment, regardless of what happens with that person or with absolutely any person. And another problem with continuously mentally investing into this outcome, fantasizing about this person, is that fantasy always beats reality. Always beats reality in terms of you could be having a real relationship with somebody fantastic, wonderful, and incredible, and be completely incapable of assigning to that person the value that they deserve, because you're fantasizing and you're grounding and you're balancing yourself emotionally through your thoughts about someone else. And when you fantasize, you're in control. When you fantasize, everything is perfect. When you fantasize, that person is a photoshopped, polished, idealized version of themselves that represents everything that you want and everything that you were hoping for. And the more you invest into them, the more you become attached to the outcome, the more you pour your energy into it, and the more you lose yourself in that. And the trouble that a lot of us also have, because we don't come into a new person's life as a clean slate. We don't say, You've never had a romantic experience before. Here I am. And therefore, we know exactly what my value is, what your value is, what is going on. No, we come in and they have their baggage, and we have our baggage. And the funny thing about a lot of people, and a lot of men especially, will tell you, I'm very attached to my freedom. It's true. They are. They are very attached to their freedom. But at a certain age, that freedom sometimes has a name. That freedom goes by the name of Annie or Lucy or Svetlana or unrequited love, or somebody with whom it didn't work out, or the girl that got away. That is the real name of that freedom to which they're so deeply attached, about which they have so deeply fantasized, compared to which nobody now can compare, because that is the golden standard and that is the ideal, and you can't compete against that. Not with a girl either. If a girl is emotionally invested into this fantasy, you can't compete against that either, because reality is going to lose out to the fantasy while the fantasy is being maintained. And these days we're suffering from this thing too, where people are always connected. We're connected through social networks, we're connected through the internet, we're connected through media. This idea of just letting something go, it seems like, oh no, that happened years ago. I've totally let it go. Except they haven't, because sometimes, especially for men, it just takes the most minimal investment in order to keep that thread of fantasy going. Women are a little bit less so. Only a little bit. A woman can fantasize quite a bit too. But the reason that a woman is a little bit less so, a little bit more predisposed with time and distance of letting go, is because a woman needs security. A woman needs protection. And that kind of security and protection, it comes with presence. A man is much less in need of that kind of security and protection. A man needs that kind of emotional and sexual connection that sometimes they can create through fantasy for very prolonged periods of time. So girls, when you're coming into the life of someone new, when that someone new seems like they should have been married twice by now, they should have had some serious, and it's not the case, and you have to ask yourself why. Be a little bit skeptical. Allow yourself the possibility that it's not just the freedom, that you're coming up against someone that he's not going to tell you about, and that so long as that someone is a fantasy and you keep coming up against that fantasy as a reality, it's going to be a very, very hard battle to win. You have to learn to detach, to let go of the outcome, to not be outcome oriented, and to let people go. Because by detaching, that is the only way that you can show your value as well as a fantasy. It is only when you become not an option, but an opportunity that is walking away, or an opportunity that has walked away, not menaced to do so, that you have a chance to become a fantasy. And granted, a lot of people will tell you the most important thing is to walk away. Don't just walk away, be happy. People don't fantasize about people who are miserable without them, who miss them tremendously, have terrible lives. People fantasize about people who are self-sustaining, who are living the dream life, who are not giving them that kind of investment that they expected out of them. Be truly happy. Find someone else in the meantime to focus your attention on, like Jeannie Weasley. And really, that is the only way. That is the only way that one day, for someone whose heart is already taken, you can stand a chance to properly appear on their radar. It doesn't mean you will, but you stand a chance of properly appearing on their radar. Otherwise, you have to understand that these bonds aren't logical. These bonds are emotional. And so long as you keep being a reality, and in their head, they have a fantasy with a huge emotional investment behind it, the fantasy is going to win. For a woman to, but with a caveat, a woman needs to have that fantasy usually present in her life in one way or another. Because otherwise, if a woman doesn't know what is going on with that fantasy, if he's found somebody else, if he's extremely happy, if he has forgotten her name, if she can't imagine a scenario where he provides any kind of protection or containment for her, a woman is much more likely to begin letting go. A man can hold on to that fantasy longer because he doesn't need that. If he stops watering it through any kind of contact, including social media, he will, of course, also let go. But it's a slightly different dynamic. Men like women who are like cats. Women like men who are like dogs. Women like men that they can count on, maybe not at the beginning. If you come off too strong at the beginning, she'll think you have no options. Therefore, you must be low value. You need to show that you have options. But once the thing gets a little bit more established, women like men who are more like dogs. Women like men who are showing her consistency, presence, protection, containment, interest. She feels like a woman next to a guy like that, especially after she's already identified him as somebody desirable, as somebody coveted, as somebody high value. A man likes a woman who's more like a cat. She comes and goes as she pleases. She doesn't need him. She considers him wonderful and amazing and privileged to be in her presence. That is not a menace to freedom. That allows plenty of room for fantasy. All right, cheers, my loves. I wish you all a beautiful day, and I'll be talking to you soon.